Imagine a young woman walking down a street in the summer of 1580, when suddenly she breaks into an uncontrollable jig. She dances frantically for hours, then collapses from exhaustion, only to get up and dance some more. This goes on for weeks. In fact, it will continue for weeks or even months for some people. And it's not just her. There are hundreds of people in her town dancing themselves sick, sometimes to their deaths. A young woman named Frau Trafia was at the market that day. We don't know much about her, but we do know that she was healthy and well up until that moment. First it was 2 women and a man, then 3 men and 2 boys. Then more and more people were overcome by the urge to dance. The local priest watched in fascination as people danced themselves to their graves, but eventually he got fed up with the dancing, and banned anyone from entering the church who had bathed in a week. Even the mayor watched for several days before he finally ordered the dancers to be taken to a meadow outside of town. But this didn't stop the dancing. They just kept dancing in the meadow. People came from all around to watch the spectacle, and some even took bets on who would die first. After all, many of the dancers hadn't bathed, and their clothes were dirty and smelly. In fact, it would continue for months. He probably thought this would put an end to the dancing, but it didn't. Most of them died from exhaustion, but some were trampled to death by the crowds. If you stop them, they think they'll die, and so we let them dance until they fall down. Doctors were baffled by the dancing plague and had no idea what to do. Some people tied weights to the ankles of the dancers in order to keep them from dancing. It's possible that the fungus was in the rye that people were eating, which would explain why the dancing plague happened in the summer when the rye was harvested. Others put the dancers in jail, but that didn't stop them from dancing. Instead, it was probably a combination of factors that led to the dancing plague. Maybe the people of Strasbourg had been under a lot of stress from the recent war. Maybe they were exposed to a fungus or bacteria, and maybe some people had a genetic predisposition to dancing mania. Whatever the cause, the dancing plague was a bizarre and terrifying event that has never been forgotten. The bacteria could have been spread through contaminated water or food. This would explain why the dancers were so exhausted, and why some of them died. It's not known exactly how many people were affected, but it's estimated that at least 400 people danced themselves sick. The walls of the jails were covered with graffiti from the dancers, who paced back and forth inside. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Some thought it was a new disease, but they couldn't figure out how it was spread. Just as suddenly as it had begun, the last dancer stopped dancing and walked away. No one knows why the dancing plague stopped, but it's possible that the dancers simply died of exhaustion. One theory is that it was a form of mass hysteria. This is when a group of people become convinced that they have a medical condition, even though they don't. The dancing plague may have started with Frau Trafia, and then spread to others through mass hysteria. Others thought it was a punishment from God for the sins of the people. Hundreds of people from Strasbourg were dancing compulsively, almost as if someone had cast a spell over them. But after the procession, something changed. All of a sudden, she started dancing in the street. The dancing went on for 5 days, and then more people started to die. The first victim was a man named Hans de Ba. He was 23 years old when he was overcome by the urge to dance. He danced for 4 days straight before he finally collapsed and died. The second victim was a 26-year-old woman named Ishlin. She danced for 2 weeks before she died. At first, she danced merrily and even seemed happy, but she kept dancing all day and all night, and soon she became exhausted. What is going on? Is this a miracle, a curse, or something else entirely? Welcome to the weirdest dance party in history. By September, there were 400 dancers in the streets of Strasbourg. Many of them were too weak to stand up, so they just lay on the ground and danced. One person wrote, "As soon as they hear music, they can't help themselves but move their feet and dance. Sometimes they want to go home and change their clothes because they're soiled and sweaty, but after they've washed themselves, they have to go back to dancing again. They can't stop dancing, even for a moment." It was as if some kind of zombie plague had infected the town. In the summer of 1518, everything was normal in Strasbourg, Alsace, a trading city in the Holy Roman Empire. That is, it was as normal as things could be in a place where a brutal civil war had broken out just a few years earlier. But those dark days were behind them now, and the citizens of Strasbourg were ready to celebrate. On July, residents gathered together in the market square for the annual Corpus Christi procession. They were celebrating the feast day of the Holy Trinity. The church was decorated, children sang carols, and people just enjoyed the festivities. As the days went on, she didn't stop to eat or drink. She would just dance right past people offering her food and water. Even when she collapsed from exhaustion, she would get back up and keep dancing. One woman who was there that day wrote, I myself saw their 20,000 I have never seen such a large number of communicants at any other festival. But something strange was happening that no one noticed yet. The next day, she was still dancing. Her family tried to stop her, but she just kept going. Soon, others joined her. People came from all around to watch these dancers, and some even joined in. At first, no one knew what to make of this. Some thought it was a miracle, others thought it was a punishment from God. In fact, the dancing continued for months. Some of the victims begged people to help them, but most onlookers just stood by and watched. It was during this time that the first eyewitness accounts of the dancing plague were written. It must have been a strange sight, watching hundreds of people dancing aimlessly in the streets, collapsing and dying from exhaustion. After a while, the crowds got bored and the interest in the dancing plague began to fade away. But the dancing didn't stop. Not for weeks. Over the course of the next year, more than 400 people died from dancing. One doctor who treated some of the victims wrote, "When they are seized by this mania, they want to dance." As the dancing plague continued, people began to take extreme measures to try and stop it. Finally, on October, the dancing plague came to an end. In the end, 15 people died from the dancing plague. The dancing plague has never been explained, but there are a few theories as to what caused it. Another theory is that the dancing plague was caused by a fungus. Some fungi can cause hallucinations and uncontrollable movements. There's also the theory that the dancing plague was caused by a bacterial infection. No one knows for sure what caused the dancing plague, but it's likely that there was no single cause. So there you have it, the story of the dancing plague of 1580. Do you believe this was a miracle, a curse, or something else entirely? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe and leave a like. Thanks for watching. See you next time.